36. It's 2000 hours in Banjul, and from GRTS, this is the news. Broadcasting live for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. In the headlines, Vice President Dr. Aissatou Toure discusses the way forward for the successful implementation of the 2022 OIC Gambia Summit with officials from the OIC Secretariat and partners. The High Court of the Gambia have sentenced former AFPRC junta member and one-time minister Yankuba Toure to death by hanging in a historic ruling. Away from home in South Africa, the death toll rises to 72 amid efforts by the government to restore order after days of violence and looting following imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma. And Zimbabwe's president extends the country's COVID-19 lockdowns to 2 weeks to scale up vaccine drive to administer 1 million jabs amid a rise in new cases. Well, these and other stories coming ahead in the news. I am Modinjai. In a flurry of engagements, His Excellency President Adama Barrow received in audience a delegation of ministers from Sierra Leone and the World Bank Country Director Nathan Belletti at State House. The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, Wednesday in audience received a delegation of ministers from the Republic of Sierra Leone who are in the Gambia for talks with their counterparts on establishing a joint cooperation commission between the two countries. The President also separately received the World Bank Country Director Nathan Belletti. We have details of both engagements in this report by Momotu Jallo.
The high-powered Sierra Leonean delegation comprises 2 ministers and a deputy minister. It is led by Honorable David Pandanoa, the Minister of Internal Affairs, who disclosed that they are in the Gambia on a follow-up on the discussions held by the 2 heads of state during President Barrow's visit to Sierra Leone.
And so, His Excellency the President of Gambia, Adama Barrow, and His Excellency the President of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio, thought it fit that we should find a way of creating something out of this relationship. And so they discussed with the foreign ministers, they were involved, and then the 2 ambassadors were involved. And then recently we were asked to come over to sign up on a joint cooperation commission.
The Gambia's High Commissioner in Sierra Leone, His Excellency Aliu K. Jammeh, welcomed the establishment of the Joint Cooperation Commission as an important milestone in the 2 concerns, commending the 2 heads of state for taking the initiative.
This is a momentous occasion because for the first time in the history and in the relationship and the ties that these 2 countries have, which is very historic and very rich. But the visit today has concretized that in a way which is the first of its type. Signing a general cooperation agreement framework between the 2 countries is the first time that we are doing it. I'm aware that attempts in the past have been made, efforts have been made in that regard, but to do it in such a manner as done today at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and paying a courtesy call on His Excellency the President with such a high-level delegation is the first of its type.
Sierra Leone and the Gambia have had long-standing relations, but it's the first time the 2 countries are taking these concrete initiatives to cement and advance the bilateral relationship.
We've signed that joint communication, which will involve various things, cooperation on various things, economy, the finance, financial services, security, defense, agriculture, trade, and various other host of other things inclusive of that. And so we're looking forward to this. Already we've had like 2 MOUs, one looking at residential permits for both people in the Gambia and Sierra Leone to do away with that. So we're looking at that. We haven't signed that. We're going to discuss it with our various leaders. And then also another one on trade, an MOU that was being signed in 2006 but never been implemented. And so we're looking to see what we can do with that.
In a separate engagement, President Barrow also received in audience the World Bank Country Director Nathan Belletti at the State House. Speaking to reporters after the closed-door engagement with President Barrow, Mr. Belletti praised the government's economic performance particularly during the turbulent COVID-19 pandemic.
The purpose of our visit today was, first of all, to congratulate and recognize the government of the Gambia for the very effective implementation and the program that we have jointly, but also the fact that the government has shown great economic management prowess over the pandemic period. We're also able to inform the President of our future plans for collaboration in the Gambia, including our new country partnership framework, which we hope to submit to our board for approval in September. And in this partnership framework, we're hoping to expand and increase substantially the financial collaboration partnership we have with the Gambia.
Mr. Blady, however, assured that the World Bank will continue to support the Gambia, especially in light of the recent windstorms that swept across the country. Momodu Jallo, GRTS News.
Flurry of engagements there earlier at the State House in Banjul. The OIC Secretariat and partners are discussing the way forward for the successful implementation of the 2022 OIC Summit to be hosted by the Gambia. The Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Toure, officiated the opening ceremony of the two-day-long event taking place at the Sadaura Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center in Kololi. Louis Mendy reports.
The Gambia is playing host to the 2022 OIC Summit, and the OIC Secretariat is aware of the fact that it is only proper preparation that gives perfect performance, hence the ongoing two-day convergence with others with stake in the successful hosting of the event. The meeting is therefore expected to discuss two major things: one, to adopt the terms of reference for the summit, and two, to design the budget for the event. Binta Jame Sidibe is the chair of the local organizing committee.
The local organizing committee, it has 8 subcommittees. These subcommittees are supposed to provide unrivaled support to the OIC Gambia Secretariat for the hosting of a successful summit. The 8 subcommittees, which are the security subcommittee, the accommodation, events, logistics, transport, documentation, media, were established to assist in the implementation of projects and to work in close collaboration with the Gambia OIC Secretariat.
Dudumbai, the consultant for the OIC, said the convergence is a key milestone in kickstarting the OIC.
The budget would be the most sensitive and important part of the convergence. I would rather we have half a day with all the subcommittees, we kind of get them to present and get to criticize this budget, then come up with something that is presented to you, and those who have not seen them, if you have any ideas to share, please do. Then we would have to adopt these budgets, even if with reservations, and work on them. Remember, the budgets are important for 2 reasons. Part of the budget will be financed by the Gambia government. Part of it will, be subject to some kind of resource mobilization. And we need to package those very well and prepare a resource mobilization strategy, that is Secretariat, to go out there and see what partners could be able to provide to support the summit.
The convergence is also an opportunity to harmonize the TORs and avoid commonalities when the budget for the event is finally prepared. Yankuba Diba is the OIC project manager.
This particular Holy Grail requires host countries to take certain responsibilities. And we saw ourselves in a race against time. We first consulted the Permanent Secretary of Finance to find out the calendar of events in terms of the budget. So I called my colleagues and said, look, we need to plan against this. So this convergence, the dates were set deliberately to make sure we attain, our objective of getting together a consolidated budget and a roadmap that we will submit to the minister for his consideration in the next year's budget.
The PowerPoint presentation was to give the convergence a taste of what the OIC Secretariat has already accomplished ahead of the summit in 2022. It shows that a multipurpose conference center has already been erected. Other accomplishments include proposals and planned activities for the event. The government views the OIC venture as a legacy project that will stand to benefit Gambians of all creeds and color for decades ahead, as well as form the basis to build better in the future. Vice President Dr. Issa Toure urged the OIC Secretariat to get the job done and in the right way.
To ensure a successful event and put the country on the world map, the government established and tasked the Gambia OIC Secretariat with 3 fundamental objectives. 1, to mobilize resources needed for a successful event, to coordinate the implementation of infrastructural projects to afford guests an unforgettable experience and better the lives of everyone in this country. Third, to ensure proper event planning, organizing, and management of the summit itself. To that end, I am glad to share that the Secretariat has mobilized nearly $200 million to implement infrastructural projects that will meaningfully transform the lives of everyone in the country. Collectively, these development projects will not only boost commercial activities, but also promise to improve our urban outlook, advance the standard of living, create employment, as well as enhance our regional competitiveness in many ways.
Dr. Issa Toure also harped on some of the successes already registered ahead of the event. The OIC matters, she said, will always remain a priority of the Barrow government.
Evaluation of bids in respect to the expansion of the Battle-Harding Highway and the construction of the 50-kilometer urban road network is done, and the report sent to the donors for approval. And I am happy to say that approval is given based on board's recommendations. B, contractors have started drilling boreholes as part of the rehabilitation of water and sanitation network project. C, designs of the VVIP, that is the very, very important presidential lounge at the airport, have been finalized. D, the dates for laying the foundation stone for the 5-star hotel are being discussed, and very soon you will hear about that. We are on track for sending another batch of security officers to Turkey for high-level training.
The OIC priority include the construction of new hotels, the expansion of the VIP lounge at the Banjul International Airport, the construction of 50-kilometer urban road network, the rehabilitation of water and sanitation, electricity enhancement project, the widening of Battle-Harding Highway to a dual carriage lane, and security reforms. And as the OIC Secretariat and the government brace up for the task at hand, COVID-19 remains the major challenge ahead of the summit in 2022. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
Well, now let's turn to some legal matters where we head straight to the High Court in Banjul, where the High Court has convicted and sentenced the former AFPRC junta member and one-time Minister of Local Government and Lands, Yankuba Toure, to death by hanging. The presiding judge, Justice Ibrahim Jaite, ruled that the prosecution has established the necessary ingredients of the offense and found Mr. Toure guilty of the offense. GRTS's senior legal correspondent, Baba Silla, was at the High Court complex in Banjul and filing this report.
The accused person is charged on a single count of murder contrary to Section 187 of the Criminal Code, Cap 10, Volume 3, Laws of the Gambia.
Justice Ibrahim Ajete finally delivered his verdict in the Koro Sise murder trial, sentencing former junta member and one-time Minister Yankuba Toure to death by hanging after being overwhelmingly convinced by the evidence presented by prosecution witnesses. Yankuba Toure, who once served as the AFPRC's Minister for Local Government and Lands, was tried on a single charge of murder for almost 2 years for his alleged participation in the killing of his late cabinet colleague and former finance minister of the military junta Usman Koro Sise, who mysteriously died in June 1995. Investigators and several witnesses who had earlier testified both at the Truth Commission and court alleged that Mr. Ture in June 1995 at his residence in Kololi used a pestle to batter the late Koro Sise to death. Witnesses at the trial, some of who testified at the Truth Commission, adversely mentioned several junta members including Edward Singate, Peter Singate, Tumbul Tamba, P.K. Jada and Pa Alu Gomez, but only Mr. Ture alone is being tried for the murder following his refusal to testify before the Truth Commission in 2019 to explain the mysterious death of Usman Koro Sise. During the marathon two-year legal battle, the state represented by the acting director of public prosecution, A.M. Yusuf, presented 9 witnesses before closing his case, and the defense called 3 witnesses, including the accused Yankuba Ture. Witnesses who testified during the trial included Ture's own security orderlies. Witnesses who testified during the trial included Ture's own security orderlies, Ensa Mendy, Ahmad Jangum, Lamin Dur, and the confessed serial killer Alaji Kani. The case also went to the Constitutional Court for determination of Ture's constitutional immunity claim, which has always been Mr. Ture's contention since his first appearance in court. Ture was able to secure a ruling in his favor, but the Constitutional Court, led by the Chief Justice, later dismissed the case and ordered the continuation of hearing without giving details of their decision. The judgment was highly attended by a cross-section of society, including Ture's friends and family members. The trial judge extensively analyzed the evidence and argument presented by both parties before delivering his final verdict in a fully packed courtroom. Justice Ibrahim Ajere said prosecution has established the essential element of the murder as charged, noting that the confessed serial killer, who was the state principal witness Alaji Kani, is an accomplished and competent witness whose evidence cannot be refuted. The trial judge added that evidence from other state witnesses also supported Mr. Kani's testimony. The judge further observed that it is irrefutable that the deceased Koro Sise has died and the burned body that was found in a vehicle was the body of the deceased. According to Justice Jete, Mr. Kani's demeanor during his testimony represented a sign of regret. The High Court judge ruled that prosecution had established its case beyond reasonable doubt, noting that witness testimonies truly depicted the true picture of Koro Sise's murder. Justice Jete finally sentenced Mr. Ture to death by hanging. Ture's defense will most likely appeal against the decision at the Court of Appeal, but until then Ture will remain in jail at Mile 2 Central Prison, where he has been detained for almost 2 years pending the determination of his appeal. For GRTS News, I am Baba Silla.
Baba Silla there with the report. Now, still in the historic ruling that sentenced the former AFPRC junta member Yankuba Ture to death by hanging, we are now joined live in the studio by lawyer Lamin Boj to expand on the conversation on the verdict. Now, lawyer Boj, welcome to GRTS News.
Thank you very much.
Now, is there any possibility for Yankuba Ture to appeal the case?
Yeah, that is a matter of right. He has a right of appeal against the decision of the judge to the Gambia Court of Appeal before the sentence will be carried out. He has a right of appeal also from the Gambia Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. And that will take some years to come before the final decision will come.
Good. Now, let's put the ruling in perspective here. What does the judgment actually entail?
Yeah, the judgment is on the merits of the case, and decision, that is the final decision of the court, is also based on the circumstances of the case. Normally, the sentence that is delivered by the court is commensurate with the offense that has been committed. So that will explain the reason why the sentence is to be carried out by way of hanging.
Now, what is the fate of others allegedly involved in the murder of late Usman Koro Sise as far as this judgment is concerned?
Well, the evidence have disclosed that, and the judgment has also highlighted some conspirators in the offense. Well, that alone suffices to establish the point that they are conspirators in the case.
And that's a case itself?
Yeah, that is a case itself.
Okay.
But they are not yet arraigned before the court. They are not yet charged for the offenses alleged. And that will be eventually determined by the recommendations of the TRRC.
Okay. Now, how would this ruling, of course, impact on national reconciliation?
Yeah, it's a difficult case, and the judgment itself is also very hard in the eyes of some members of the public.
Exactly.
But others will see it as justice finally delivered, and that will be a relief to some of the family members of the deceased. So you can safely say that it brought about mixed feelings. Those who are in favor of the judgment, obviously, and those who are against the decision of the court. Yes, national reconciliation can be brought about in about various ways. Firstly is the recommendations from the TRRC about compensation to the deceased family. At least that will appease their minds. Firstly, they have seen that justice has been done to the case, and secondly, they have been compensated for the loss. Although no amount of money is enough to compensate for a life, but that may tamper the feelings of the family. And then, on the other hand, still the matter is not yet determined finally, because there is a whole set of procedure to be followed before the sentence is eventually carried out.
Okay. Now, what lessons should those who commit atrocities while hiding behind the law learn from this judgment?
Yeah, it's just a misapprehension of the law, I will call it, because anyone who knows the law will know that it's no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how powerful you are. Anybody who violates the law, unless you are pardoned, and that pardon will come after the conviction. Even in this case, the president has the powers to grant a pardon. But we have not reached that stage yet. And there is a whole set of procedures to be followed. So it doesn't matter how rich you are, how influential you are, how powerful you are, how famous you are. Always make sure you do the right thing at the right time. If you do wrong today, tomorrow nemesis can catch up with you.
Good. Thank you very much, Lawyer Lamin Bojde, for talking to GRTS.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, moving on. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, Gambians Abroad, Dr. Mamadou Tangara, on Wednesday received in audience the Minister of Internal Affairs, David Pandanoa, other senior government officials and representatives of the business community of Sierra Leone. The courtesy call involved the signing of a document on the General Framework of Cooperation Agreement for the establishment of a joint commission between the governments of the Republic of the Gambia and the Republic of Sierra Leone. Mary Anjai reports.
Speaking at the event, Minister Tangara highlighted the need for the two countries to work together and support each other's development aspirations. He used the opportunity to commend the Sierra Leonean government for supporting the Gambia's human resource base, saying many senior government officials were trained in Sierra Leone.
From today, I think we have to work harder and make sure that our populations benefit from all the work that we are doing, not only seeing us on TV signing, but let's walk the talk. And I'm convinced that with the dynamic team that came from Sierra Leone and the dynamic team that we met in Sierra Leone, I'm convinced that we'll achieve these dreams to the happiness of our leaders. And we wish them all well, because I know their main concern is to develop their countries.
Minister David Pandanoa said The signing of the document will speed up the implementation of various development projects in the Gambia and Sierra Leone.
We have a long-time relationship with the Gambia, Sierra Gambia, and so it is all but necessary that all the talking has taken place, all the foundation has taken place, and so now we need to crystallize it to see that we implement the various development aspirations that we have for our nations into fruition for our people.
The partnership agreement includes policies on trade and investment, plus education, health, tourism, culture, and many others. Marian Jai Ajayi, GRTS News.
Time now to take our first break. We'll be back with news from outside the Gambia right after this. Stay with us.
Hello! There's a new update from your favorite GSM operator, AfriCell.
For all of you that have struggled to buy cash power beyond $7,000, AfriCell has done it again. The limit to buy cash power is now up to $30,000. Oh yes, $30,000.
Buy all the cash power you want from your AfriMoney account by dialing *777#.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
It's an amazing offer. AfriMoney just got way better. The threshold for cash in and cash out on your AfriMoney has been increased.
Where it used to be 10,000 per transaction, now it has been increased to 30,000. Meaning, your AfriMoney account, you can now withdraw and deposit up to $30,000 at once.
Cashing in and out just got 3 times easier. For more info, call 777.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Hello.
Welcome back. We begin in South Africa, where the death toll from the violent protest there has risen to 72. This includes 10 people killed in a stampede during looting at a shopping center in Soweto. The South African government is trying to restore order after days of deadly violence, looting and destruction to property. Police say over 1,000 people have so far been arrested. CGTN's Astatal has the rest of the details.
Over 2,000 soldiers have been deployed to the streets of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal provinces with one mission: to help restore order. Days of looting and violence have already left dozens dead. Police say a majority died during stampedes.
We cannot allow anyone to make a mockery of our democratic state, and we have instructed the law enforcement agencies to double their efforts to stop the violence and to increase deployment on the ground.
South Africa's economy was already struggling to recover amidst the pandemic. Unemployment stood at 32.6% in the first 3 months of 2021. The government is now warning that the looting will only exacerbate the situation.
This looting and the violence will lead us to a point we don't really want to get to that situation. That is why we are saying it's not just law enforcement only. Law enforcement and leadership of communities. We must all step forward and say looting cannot take place in our community. I'm calling on every community from the townships to the suburbs across Gauteng.
Gauteng province, the country's main economic hub, has witnessed widespread looting. This has left some business people feeling frustrated.
I'm a black-owned business and I have managed to create employment at least for 4 people. Now what is going to happen to all those people that were working here? I mean, it's not fair. We know the rate of unemployment is very high, but when we do things like this, then it becomes more higher.
The government is still working on gaining control of the security situation. Beyond arresting looters, Police Minister Becky Selly says 12 people are under investigation for inciting the violence.
To Zimbabwe now, where the President Emmerson Mnangagwa has extended the country's latest lockdown by 2 weeks, citing a rise in COVID-19 infections. He says the country aims to vaccinate 1 million people over the same period. Here is CGTN's Farai Makwaku Tuya with the rest of the details from Harare.
will be restricted to between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. A dusk to dawn curfew will remain in force. Schools will stay closed and intercity travel prohibited for a further 2 weeks as Zimbabwe tries to stem a third wave of the pandemic. New cases have risen by 43% and 466 deaths have been recorded since July 1st. In a televised address on Tuesday evening, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa said the highly contagious Delta variant was the most dominant strain, accounting for approximately 80% of new COVID-19 infections. Now behind me is a vaccination center where there is a long queue indicative of the increased vaccine uptake. President Mnangagwa said during this lockdown, the vaccination drive will be scaled up and a target has been set to administer 1 million jabs over the next 2 weeks. By July 13th, 955,000 people had received their first dose and more than 619,000 people had been fully vaccinated. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Before we end this newscast, a quick look at our top stories. In a flurry of engagements, President Adama Barrow has received in audience a delegation of ministers from Sierra Leone and the World Bank Country Director Nathan Belletti at State House. The Vice President Dr. Aissatou Toure have been discussing the way forward for the successful implementation of the 2022 OIC Gambia Summit with officials from the OIC Secretariat together and partners. The High Court of the Gambia sentenced former AFPRC junta member and one-time minister Yankuba Toure to death by hanging in a historic ruling. Away from home in South Africa, the death toll rises to 72 amid efforts by the government to restore order after days of violence and looting following imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma. And Zimbabwe's president extends the country's COVID-19 lockdowns to 2 weeks to scale up vaccine drive to administer 1 million jabs amid a rise in new cases. Well, that does it for this edition of the GRTS News at 8. Join us at 2200 hours again for another bulletin. Until then, enjoy the rest of our interesting programs.
Towns and villages. Nimu program kuta timimbi na la banko tala bumbaka njiate.
Yanjambure to yanjan nimbure musoni kyau. Wotubo yanjan ninkaya. Tubabola foro ko doktawa.
Program lo mimba dendi na sate ringol nyin na sate balla tarikola.